Africa's Flame, The Rise of Ibrahim Traoré. Why did I write this book, and why does it matter? Well, as a member of CPI, I believe that economic growth is the only way for countries to be able to break free of the domination of imperialism, globalism, the rule of the world by big banks and monopolies. And that's the only way to have true freedom. But is it possible to build cities without destroying the planet and trashing the whole place? So I did some research. I learned that China has been building a green wall around the desert for the last 40 years, and that Mexico is doing agroforestry programs, and France has been working on a green wall in the Sahel for many years. But the problem was that the African farmers and herders who were supposed to be getting paid to do the work were finding that payments were delayed and that traditional pastoral routes were being disrupted. So when I heard about Ibrahim Traoré and how he is overseeing the cultivation of pineapples in the Sahel region, and they're having an agricultural boom, and they are still taking care of the environment, and they're teaching their children ecology, I had to let the world know. So here we go, Africa's Flame, The Rise of Ibrahim Traoré. Fighting imperialism with pineapples. Agro-pastoral and fishing offensive in Burkina Faso. March 25th, 2025. At Camp Nabakum II in Ouagadougou, the Army, trained on a local farm, cultivates a 60,000-foot pineapple field set up on a 1-hectare plot, and experiment with coffee, cocoa, avocado, and cola on a nearby 8-hectare plot. The Army is not just weapons. It must participate in the development of our country. We are teaching the military a lot of things, Traoré said. New agricultural projects in pineapples, wheat, fish, and tomatoes are all part of a plan to make Burkina Faso wealthier, more stable, and more independent. In the spirit of former revolutionary Prime Minister Thomas Sankara, Captain Traoré has taken power and launched Burkina Faso's Agro-Pastoral and Fishing Offensive 2023-2025, and a technological revolution to liberate West Africa from the domination of imperialism, globalism, and achieve national sovereignty. Burkina Faso's journey towards independence. For nearly a decade, NATO-backed Islamist extremists have destabilized the Sahel region of West Africa. Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation, relies primarily on agriculture, producing cereals, cash crops, roots, tubers, fruits, and vegetables for survival. Terrorism, Sahara Desert expansion, and overgrazing have forced desperate families to flee en masse in search of stability. In many isolated regions, families still face violent attacks, lack electricity, and even starve. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré is turning Burkina Faso around. Since 2007, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has risen through the ranks of the Burkina Faso military to defend his country. Frustrated by corrupt leaders who serve imperialism for suitcases of cash, Captain Traoré, age 36, and a group of army officers staged the January 2022 coup d'etat and brought the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration military junta to power. Traoré's first order of business was to form an alliance with Mali and Niger to expel all French/NATO troops. The Sahel Alliance, AES, has also rejected the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, a group which serves the interests of NATO. At a Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg in 2023, Traoré declared that the Burkinabe people had raised up an army of volunteers to fight against the most barbaric form, the most violent manifestation of neocolonialism and imperialism in order to secure their destiny. Homeland or death, we will prevail, he declared. Traoré condemned African heads of state who do nothing to help struggling families and dance like marionettes each time the imperialists pull their strings. Meanwhile, in Traoré's Burkina Faso, the government is working to stop the drain of wealth out of the country through ambitious economic moves like nationalized gold mining and a proposed cultural eco-city to honor Princess Yenenga. Most of all, however, food security is crucial for independence. No people who are hungry can be free. Defying Western imperialism, Traoré has launched the Agro-Pastoral and Fishing Offensive 2023-2025 to end poverty and deadly mass migration. Through pineapple fields, fisheries, wheat fields, and tomato processing plants, Burkina Faso is breaking free. Wheat fields forever, achieving food sovereignty. Burkina Faso relies heavily on wheat imports. In 2023, Burkina Faso spent $110.3 million to import 270,000 tons of wheat and 16,360 tons of wheat flour to meet national demands. At the Africa-Russia Summit in 2023, Russia gifted Burkina Faso 25,000 tons of wheat to help Burkina Faso become self-sufficient in its food supply. Traoré thanked Russia and urged African leaders not to return to the next summit without having secured their own food supply. Burkina Faso has now committed 5,000 hectares to produce wheat seeds to revive local wheat production. Even prisoners are turned into national farmers, reducing their sentences by 3 months for every month they serve in the wheat fields. To further strengthen food sovereignty, Burkina Faso partnered with Turkey and Qatar to launch a $14.4 million pasta manufacturing plant with a flour mill in the Coupele-Toise commune. This plant will turn out 100 tons of pasta and 100 tons of flour daily from local wheat producers to empower working Burkinabe families. Floating fish farms, a sustainable future. Burkina Faso, in partnership with the Netherlands, a world leader in innovative and sustainable aquaculture, initiated a revolutionary $18 million sustainable floating fish farm project. On Monday, February 24, 2025, the acting Minister of State, Minister of Agriculture, Animal and Fisheries, Mr. Haruna Sila, handed over 45 floating cages, 60 tons of fish food, and 100,000 fryers to local fishermen in the Samadani watershed to transform fish production and to train agricultural entrepreneurs. The Fisheries for Employment and Food Security, PISA, will set up hatcheries and training centers in various regions to help combat overfishing and to ensure a peaceful and secure environment between fishermen and fish keepers. This infrastructure will produce nearly 300 tons of fish per year, which will ensure food security, create thousands of jobs, and reduce the need for imports. Commending the Netherlands for their commitment, Traoré testified, "Thanks to these floating cages, we now have the opportunity to increase our production and improve our income. This is a real opportunity for us and our families." The Tomato Revolution, empowering local farmers. Captain Traoré is empowering local tomato farmers and ensuring food security until every Burkinabe child eats their fill. Despite producing 290,000 tons of tomatoes in 2021 and 313,500 tons of tomatoes in 2022, Burkina Faso, the fourth largest producer in West Africa, loses 30% of its produce due to inadequate storage and processing facilities during transport to Ghana. As a result, Burkina Faso imported 23,600 tons of tomato puree, worth more than $8 million in 2022, according to the Food and Agricultural Organization. Rejecting predatory loans from the International Monetary Fund, Burkinabe citizens instead invested their savings into a popular shareholding model called the Agency for the Promotion of Community Entrepreneurship, APEC, to develop 3 multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art tomato processing plants. In November 2024, in Bobo Dioulasso, Burkina Faso's second largest city, Captain Traoré inaugurated the $8.9 million facility named the Société Burkinabe de Tomates, SOBTO. This plant processes 6 tons per hour of locally grown tomatoes into pastes, purees, and sauces under the Ibrahim. With a projected $13 million annual sales over the first 5 years, the plant will provide stable employment for thousands of working families and youth. In December 2024 in Yako, Burkina Faso opened another $8.9 million processing plant funded by the Cooperative Society with Board of Directors Building the Future, Scoop Kaba. Situated just 10 kilometers from one of Burkina Faso's largest dams, its location ensures a reliable water source for tomato cultivation and processing. This plant, named Société Faso Tomate, SOFATO, sources 70% of the required raw materials locally and processes up to 5 tons per hour of tomatoes into pastes, purees, and sauces. The facility could generate $11.2 million profit within its first year to meet national needs and to conquer new export markets. On January 15, 2025, APEC approved funding for a new $2.4 million tomato processing plant in Tenkodogo. The plant's processing capacity and launch timeline have not yet been revealed. Captain Traoré praises the citizens of Burkina Faso for this unprecedented collective effort to reduce waste, support local farmers, and create economic independence for working families and youth. What can we learn from Burkina Faso? No one can create the future we want for our country. It is up to us to invent it, create, nurture it, and make it our own. President Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Visionary leadership that is committed to fighting for the well-being of the nation is only the first step in the fight to break free from imperialism and globalism. Massive investment in local production and human labor, not austerity, is the way to prosper. As American leaders debate cuts to social services, tariffs on imports, and other growth-producing restrictions, Americans should be asking, instead of what can we burn, what can we build? Collective effort is the best way to strengthen a nation. Burkinabes are committed to carrying out Traoré's vision and are partnering with strategic allies to liberate themselves and their region. While Burkina Faso is a small country, they have proven they can stand up against corrupt global institutions and fight for a more just and prosperous future. The Center for Political Innovation shares these values. We are city builders. Join CPI today and help build the movement to put working families first and defeat the deep state. Burkina Faso, a progressive populist revolution. June 20th, 2025. As Western elites continue to pursue endless wars and implement austerity and degrowth policies, formerly colonized countries are charting a new path forward. Partnering with their global allies and using their national resources to create planned economies for sustainable development, they achieve economic sovereignty, uplift their people, and promote unity. Burkina Faso, partnering with Mali and Niger, expelled French troops and formed the Alliance of the Sahel States, AES, in September 2023 to liberate the region from terrorists and French domination. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, inspired by his predecessor Thomas Sankara, is leading the progressive and populist revolution in Burkina Faso and inspiring other Pan-African leaders to follow his example. The First Revolution, Land of the Upright People. As a Burkinabe military officer, Thomas Sankara led a coup in 1983 and served as prime minister until his assassination in 1987. A populist, Pan-Africanist, and anti-imperialist, inspired by his Christian faith and the Cuban Revolution, Sankara renamed the Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, Land of the Upright People, wrote a new national anthem, and drew from Marxist philosophy to develop a 5-year economic plan for the country. Economic sovereignty and anti-imperialism. Rejecting predatory loans from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, Sankara invested the country's resources into schools, medical centers, water reservoirs, and infrastructure projects. Sankara denounced French and U.S. imperialism and allied with Cuba to train young orphans in gynecology, engineering, and agronomy to develop the country. At the UN, he boldly supported the national demands of the Western Sahara, Palestine, the Nicaraguan Sandinistas, and the South African ANC. Sankara initiated land reform policies, agrarian expansion, and famine prevention. He oversaw the planting of more than 10 million trees to combat desertification in the Sahel. He led a nationwide literacy campaign and a vaccination campaign to combat yellow fever, meningitis, and measles. He fought for women's rights by outlawing female circumcision, forced marriage, and polygamy. There is no true social revolution without the liberation of women. Thomas Sankara. Committees for the Defensive Revolution ensured that policies were implemented and corrupt officials were prosecuted. Betrayal. A revolution cut short. Because of Sankara's bold stance against imperialism, France used his best friend, Blaise Compaoré, to assassinate him in 1987. Compaoré overturned nationalizations and returned the country to dependence on the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund until a popular uprising in 2014 removed him from power and brought him to justice. But France continued to loot Burkina Faso's gold and mineral wealth, dictating economic policy. Africa Rising, International Solidarity. The Alliance of the Sahel States has expelled all French troops and is breaking their region out of the chains of imperialism globalism by developing their countries sustainably. Africans are inspired by Traoré's boldness and vision. In April 2025, General Langley, a 4-star house servant for AFRICOM, accused Traoré of corruption, and a major coup plot was uncovered. Millions of anti-imperialists, wise to the tactics of imperialists, rallied in the streets around the world for the Global Day of Action in support of Ibrahim Traoré and the progressive and populist revolution. Malthusianism, degrowth, and anti-human philosophy. In order to deal with the economic crisis created by corporate monopolies of imperialism globalism, the ruling elite in Western countries promote Malthusianism and endless wars. They implement degrowth policies to reduce the population and fund terrorist groups to prevent development under the guise of environmentalism. Social media demagogues keep us divided. They vilified peaceful movements such as Medicare for All marches, Force the Vote, Hands Off Uhuru, and now they glorify riots and cowardly lone wolf acts of violence, such as the killing of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. This only keeps us from uniting against imperialism, as in the years of lead in Italy. Together, in solidarity, we will defeat imperialism and neocolonialism for a free, dignified, and sovereign Africa. Captain Ibrahim Traoré. A revolution reborn, pro-growth and pro-humanity. Captain Ibrahim Traoré and the Alliance of the Sahel States are leading the world towards a brighter tomorrow. Relying on their own security forces to fight jihadists, they are liberating their region and inspiring other African nations to rise up. Economic sovereignty and infrastructure. Traoré boldly put the IMF on notice, exposing their schemes to keep Africa as a debtor's prison. He paid off the country's debts with Burkina Faso's gold revenue after nationalizing 2 gold mines and opening a state-of-the-art gold processing facility owned by the state. Traoré has overseen well-digging projects, construction of dams, and the laying of thousands of kilometers of roads. Through the Faso Mebo initiative, he is mobilizing citizens and local contractors to donate or to help construct streets to improve mobility. The Agro-Pastoral and Fishing Offensive 2023-2025, which CPI has written about previously, aims to create national food self-sufficiency by boosting sustainable agriculture and livestock farming. Multi-million-dollar investments in fisheries and processing plants for tomatoes, wheat, rice, dairy, meat, and even cashew apples add value to local products and create thousands of jobs to boost the nation's economy. In May 2025, Traoré handed over 104 billion French CFA francs, USD 172 million, of agro-pastoral equipment to the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal and Fisheries Resources to improve hydro-agricultural infrastructure and to support mechanized farming brigades that serve vulnerable communities. I officially hand over the keys to all this machinery and wish you a successful farming season. Let us pray for good rains and hope you meet the goals set for this year. Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Investing in life. Traoré's Health Initiative. Captain Traoré is investing in healthcare for all Burkinabe citizens with funding from the Islamic Development Bank and the Lives and Livelihoods Fund. He has given 15 mobile clinics to the Ministry of Health in order to focus on preventative care for infants, children under 5, and women of childbearing age in rural areas. Other mobile clinics are used to treat soldiers on the battlefield. In 2025, 55 new hospitals and 5 intensive care units were built. The National Reforestation Campaign 2025 will establish medicinal plant groves in every province. Traditional healers are invited to use ancestral medicine in public hospitals, and maternity care is now free in Burkina Faso. No woman should pay to bring life into the world. President Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The city around the market. Tradition meets transformation. The Ministry of Urban Planning and Housing is building 300 housing units with local materials by August 2025 in the Central Nord region for internally displaced persons, IDPs. With soilless agriculture systems, residents can grow crops without traditional soil. World Architecture is also building housing for IDPs in the town of Kaya in central Burkina Faso, based on an ancient African concept of the city developing around the market. Community play areas, observation towers, and community spaces support social development. The project will also include a market, a mosque, a church, a training center, a daycare, a clinic, and several farms for livestock and agriculture. This project reflects our commitment to not only shelter displaced families, but also to ensure their dignity, security, and economic empowerment. Mikailu Sidibe, Minister of Urban Planning and Housing. Nation building through higher education. Traoré's education initiatives aim to develop skilled professionals who can advance national progress while strengthening ties with global allies. Education from kindergarten to college is now funded by the government. College students receive a stipend for living expenses. Since the 1960s, around 3,500 Burkinabe college students have been trained in Russia. In May 2025, Russia offered university scholarships to 27 Burkinabe students. Traoré will also support young scientists by opening Russian universities in Burkina Faso. Stability through unity. Defending the revolution. Learning from historical examples of progressive and populist revolutions being overturned by the CIA through media manipulation, economic sanctions, armed insurgencies, and color revolutions, Traoré is building regional unity to safeguard the revolution. The faithful united. Religious solidarity under siege. In Burkina Faso, Traoré strives to create harmony between religions to strengthen the country. Volunteer defense forces are liberating villages from NATO-backed ISIS terrorists who target religious minorities. Religious discrimination intended to destabilize the country is punishable by life in prison. During the overlap of Eid al-Fitr and the end of Lent in May 2025, Traoré invited the faithful to reflect and to break their fast together in a national feast. There, Traoré prayed for the harmonious development of the country. Educating patriots, empowering a generation to build a nation. Traoré is committed to building a nation of responsible and patriotic citizens who master Burkina Faso's resources and value the nation's socio-cultural identity. Civics is now a core subject in schools to promote indigenous values and to nurture future citizens. Junior Achievement Burkina Faso, along with the Ministry of Youth, are equipping Burkinabe youth with entrepreneurial and workforce readiness skills such as financial literacy, business sense, and leadership skills to drive national economic sovereignty. In September 2024, Burkina Faso hosted the first Summer University of the AES for more than 200 youth from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to become actively involved in the political, economic, and social life in the Sahel region. Traoré has invested millions of dollars in upgrading major sports stadiums and revamping regional youth sports organizations to foster structured sports participation and to create a shared identity. Unity through culture, film, dance, and the spirit of the nation. Burkina Faso is committed to fostering peace and stability by hosting cultural festivals that celebrate Africa's vibrant cultural heritage through traditional arts, music, and cinema. FESPACO 2025. Ouagadougou hosted the 29th edition of Africa's premier Pan-African Film and Television Festival from February 22 through March 1, 2025, featuring 235 films from 48 countries. Customs and Traditions Day. May 15 is now an official public holiday in Burkina Faso. Communities throughout the country engage in traditional dances, music, art, and tribal rituals. This holiday honors ancestral practices, strengthens national unity, and promotes cultural tourism. Monument of a Revolution, Thomas Sankara Complex. Revolutionaries honor the legacy of valiant leaders. In October 2023, the government of Burkina Faso officially recognized Sankara as the hero of the nation and renamed the Boulevard Charles de Gaulle to Boulevard Thomas Sankara. The 14-hectare, 35-acre Thomas Sankara complex, designed by Pritzker Prize-winning Burkinabe German architect Francis Carré, serves as a place of life and gathering, as well as a tribute to Sankara and his 12 companions who were assassinated alongside him in 1987. A bronze statue of Sankara stands beside a preserved building on the site of the assassination. A mausoleum and commemorative public spaces are interconnected by lush green walkways. A 100-meter tower surrounded by water offers visitors the opportunity to collectively pay respect in an experiential ascent. Visitors climb 87 meters, a reference to the year of assassination, up a helicoidal ramp, or ascend in a funicular cabin, and are rewarded with a panoramic view of the capital city, as they reflect on the arduous yet rewarding path of revolution. The mausoleum is a testament to Burkinabe innovation in sustainable development by using locally sourced laterite earth, traditionally used for clay water jars instead of cement, and creating a natural ventilation system, or a green lung. Local laborers earned income and learned new skills from each other as they worked together to build the complex. Sankara's revolutionary principles of universal education, agricultural self-sufficiency, and social equity are built into the natural landscape, inviting visitors to learn from his example and to continue reaching to a higher level of progressive and popular revolution. A government of action to fight for working families. What lessons can we learn from Burkina Faso? The imperialist globalist economic system controlled by Wall Street and London crushes nations and holds back development. Forever wars only profit the military-industrial complex, while millions of innocent lives are wasted and the homeland is hollowed out. Culture wars and cowardly acts of violence only deceive and divide the population. The Center for Political Innovation is building a mass movement of working families across political and religious lines to break the chains of imperialism and globalism and to embrace a new world of win-win cooperation based on mutual respect, a world of peace and innovation. Join us. Your first month is free.